Not long after, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu arrived at the 7th floor of the Ice Flame Pavilion. After they saw Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, the two middle-aged men that stood on guard at the stairway to the 7th floor couldn't help but reveal shocked expressions. Obviously, they'd never imagined that there would actually be two young people that ascended the 7th floor. If these two young people had seniors following by their side, then the guards wouldn't have been surprised, but the problem was that there was no one following by the side of the two young people. In other words, there was at least a 6th level void initiation stage martial artist amongst them, whereas, their arrival to the stairway obviously meant that they wanted to ascend the 7th floor. 7th level of the void initiation stage. The two middle-aged men looked at each other and saw astonishment and disbelief in each other's eyes. Right when they felt surprised because of this, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu had already passed through the entrance to the stairway. Just like Duan Lingtian had guessed, the inscription formation here required a cultivation at the 7th level of the void initiation stage. Two clear sounds resounding out caused the two middle-aged men to seem as if they'd awoken from a dream. In the next moment, the astonishment on their faces grew deeper, and their eyes that were filled with disbelief flashed up and down from Duan Lingtian to Feng Tianwu while being covered in shock. Never had they imagined that the truth would actually be more terrifying than their imaginations. It wasn't just one young person amongst the two that was at the 7th level of the void initiation stage, but both of them. One looks to be around 25. The other is even more exaggerated and looks to be only a little over 20. When did such monsters appear in our Darming dynasty? One of the middle-aged men couldn't help but send a voice transmission to his companion. If they're members of our Darming dynasty, do you think they would be people that are unknown to the public? The other middle-aged man seemed to have guessed something. What you mean is, they're from another dynasty. Don't forget that the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is starting in a few months, and there are 3 dynasties that have to pass through our Darming dynasty to head to the northern desert. No matter what the two middle-aged men exchanged in private, Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu had already walked into the hall on the 7th floor. Even though the 7th floor's hall wasn't as spacious as the 6th floor, yet it wasn't cramped. Presently, there were a few customers scattered across the 7th floor's hall, and they were quietly savoring the wine in their cups and weren't paying the slightest bit of attention to everything in their surroundings. Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu's appearance didn't draw too much attention. "Big brother Duan, follow me." Under Feng Tianwu's lead, Duan Lingtian arrived and sat down at a nearby table, and the table here was extremely different from the table in an ordinary restaurant. Firstly, the bottom of the table was sealed up tightly as if something was stored within it. Secondly, there were actually 10 small holes that circled together on the surface of the table, and they looked to be extremely unique. After they sat down, Feng Tianwu smiled. "Big brother Duan, let's drink 2 cups of wine here first." "Okay." Duan Lingtian nodded, and then he raised his head and looked around for a while before frowning while shouting out, "Hey! Attendant! Where's the attendant?" "Attendant!" Duan Lingtian's words were like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, and it caused the atmosphere in the entire 7th floor of the Ice Flame Pavilion to freeze up slightly, whereas, Duan Lingtian's voice wasn't soft and it entered into the ears of the 2 middle-aged men that were on guard at the stairway. He hasn't come to our Ice Flame Pavilion in the past." One of the middle-aged men couldn't help but gulp down a mouthful of saliva. Probably." The other middle-aged man spoke stiffly. After Duan Lingtian shouted out, he noticed that the gazes of all the customers in the 7th floor couldn't help but descend onto him. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he noticed the gazes of all these people was slightly strange. "Is there something on my face? It's still the first time I've seen someone call out for an attendant on the 7th floor of the Ice Flame Pavilion." A nearby old man laughed. "It's probably his first time here. But I presume they were able to come here because a senior of theirs brought them here. But could it be that their seniors didn't tell them that the Ice Flame Pavilion doesn't have attendants?" Another person laughed. "Their seniors are really something to actually leave them here and disregard them. Their seniors probably sent them here before leaving." Numerous voices entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and they caused Duan Lingtian to feel his face go hot. "There's no attendants. How do we drink when there are no attendants? Big brother Duan." Meanwhile, Feng Tianwu spoke out, and her beautiful face was flushed red as she'd never thought that Duan Lingtian would shout out for an attendant in the 7th floor of the Ice Flame Pavilion. Earlier, she even wasn't in time to warn Duan Lingtian. "Tianwu, there are no attendants here. So how do we drink wine?" Duan Lingtian couldn't help but ask in a light voice. Feng Tianwu didn't answer Duan Lingtian but instead directly withdrew 10 mid-grade origin stones from her spatial ring, and with a raise of her hand, she placed the origin stones into the 10 small holes on the surface of the table. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian noticed a strand of a familiar aura being emitted. An inscription formation. At this moment, Duan Lingtian flashed through the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor and finally realized what was going on. In the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, some restaurants in the foreign lands didn't have attendants, and if one wanted to drink wine, then one must place origin stones into the small holes on the surface of the table to activate the inscription formation inscribed on the table. After the inscription formation was activated, the wine would be sent up from the center of the table. It was similar to vending machines from the earth in his previous life, as it would automatically send out the drink one wanted after money was put in. Of course, the earth of his previous life relied on science, whereas, this world relied on inscription formations instead. All methods lead to the same end, and their objectives were similar. No wonder they would say that. I've really made a fool of myself. Duan Ling Tian was embarrassed to the point of being ashamed to show his face after he found out what was going on, and he wished for nothing more than to drill a hole in the ground and hide there. Whoosh! Meanwhile, a faint layer of a light barrier appeared at the center of the 10 origin stones that formed a circle on the table, and half of the light barrier was blue in color, the other was red. Big Brother Duan, I'll give you a jug of blazer wine first. Feng Tianwu spoke as she pressed her hand onto the red side of the light barrier. Instantly, the barrier vanished and the 10 origin stones were swallowed into the table. Subsequently, a light sound was emitted from the center of the table, and a tray that had a jug and wine cup on it slowly ascended to appear before Duan Ling Tian's eyes. Blazer wine. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed before he started to search the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, and he quickly found out what sort of wine this was. Drinking down blazer wine was like swallowing a ball of flames, causing one's entire body including one's flesh, bones, and meridians to feel as if it was blazed by scorching flames at that moment. That feeling was extremely powerful and satisfying. Big Brother Duan, this blazer wine contains extremely dense spirit energy within it, and it possesses a similar effect as spirit fruits, yet is inferior to spirit fruits. Of course, the greatest effect of the blazer wine is to temper one's origin energy, and it's capable of making one's origin energy become even purer. Feng Tianwu didn't know that Duan Ling Tian already knew the details of the blazer wine, and she introduced it to Duan Ling Tian as she pushed the tray towards Duan Ling Tian. At the same time, she placed down another 10 origin stones and bought another jug of blazer wine as well. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, this blazer wine must be savored carefully. If it's directly poured into the stomach, then it will cause a heavy injury to one's body. However, during the second lifetime of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, he discovered a method that can avoid the heavy injury caused by directly pouring the blazer wine into the stomach. Moreover, according to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, only by pouring it all down in one go would the blazer wine be strong enough and satisfying enough. Duan Ling Tian grabbed up the wine cup and poured a full cup of blazer wine for himself. The blazer wine had a crimson-red appearance, and when it was poured within a cup, it was actually still boiling, as if it was roiling lava. A dense and restrained fragrance of wine entered into Duan Lingtian's nose in the first possible moment. What a nice wine! Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up. Even though he couldn't be considered to be a person that liked drinking, yet he was able to judge how extraordinary the blazer wine was from its fragrance. Meanwhile, Feng Tianwu poured a cup of blazer wine for herself as well, and then she held up her wine cup and smiled lightly. "Big brother Duan, try it?" As she spoke, Feng Tianwu held up the wine cup to her mouth and lightly took a sip, and it was precisely the sip that caused Feng Tianwu's face to go slightly rosy, as if it was tainted with blood. Not only that, Feng Tianwu's neck that was white like jade was slightly rosy at this moment as well. Duan Lingtian nodded, and then he held up the wine cup and placed it at the side of his mouth. Even though he was able to gain an understanding of the blazer wine from the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor, but it was only limited to an understanding, and he would only know the feeling of drinking down the blazer wine after he truly drank it. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and sucked the fragrance of the blazer wine into his nose before raising his hand and completely pouring the wine in the cup into his mouth. He'd drunk it all in a single gulp. Gulp. Duan Lingtian's throat trembled as he directly swallowed the wine into his stomach, and at this instant, he felt as if he'd swallowed a ball of flames. Not only did his throat feel as if it was burned by flames, even his internal organs became scorching hot. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian's face went red, yet his heart was as clear as a mirror instead. Sure enough, it's like what was recorded in the Rebirth Martial Emperor's memories. If this blazer wine is swallowed down in one go, it's indeed extremely satisfying. If it wasn't for him utilizing the method the Rebirth Martial Emperor discovered and had used his origin energy to silently protect his internal organs and meridians, just that cup of blazer wine from before was sufficient to cause his internal organs to suffer a heavy injury. Hu! Duan Lingtian's body trembled for no reason or rhyme as he felt the blazer wine's energy sweep through the meridians, flesh, and bones in his body, and then he fiercely heaved out a breath of air that was filled with the smell of wine. "This is absolutely the strongest wine I've had in my lifetime." On the other hand, Feng Tianwu, who sat opposite Duan Lingtian, was completely dumbstruck since the moment she saw Duan Lingtian swallow the blazer wine with a single gulp. "Big brother Duan, are you okay?" Feng Tianwu spoke with a slightly dull expression.